what would it take for you to get to 250 or $350 million in revenues? What would you do?
What we're working on right now, and the biggest hindrance is people. We are prepared for a big growth mode, and everything that we've done has prepared us for the next growth. It's funny when you start to deal with people who have an idea that they're going to control you and own you, and they're going to make you just toe the line because where's your next meal coming from? You also have situations where big contractors have lawyers on staff that go through contract documents, and they'll bid a job based on the fact that they know the contract's poor, and they can go after extras, and then they're just going to hammer that job to death. We have too much government. We do have way too much government, and it's only getting worse.
What is the extent of corruption that you've seen within the government?
You want to talk about information challenge? Oh my God. I'm not at liberty to discuss what they talk about, but I know enough that your eyes would open up pretty drastically.
On this episode of Yaps of Meaning, our guest here is Jason Kropf, the CEO of Moser Landscaping Group. Started over 40 years ago, Jason and the founder Chris Moser have grown the company from a simple landscaping operation to over 19 different business lines. They went from working for individual clients all the way to mega corporations and the government. In fact, while doing the research on them, I discovered that they actually helped build the neighborhood that I live in. Let's see if I can name everything they do in one breath. Infrastructure maintenance, road sweeping, line painting, power sweep and scrub, landscape maintenance, excavation and grading, retaining walls, concrete, interlocking stone, fence installation, planting, sodding, erosion control, soil screening, grounds maintenance, property maintenance, snow removal, and litter management. Did I get that right?
That's pretty good. Yeah, okay. I don't think I could do that.
So now that we have that out of the way, I guess we'll start with who is Jason and how did you get here and why do you wake up every day?
Love what I do. I've been doing this for quite some time. I started out of high school. So I was on a hockey scholarship, and I thought I'd take some time off to focus on that. And I started working in landscaping and started to realize that this is actually a pretty good gig. There's opportunity here. And that's when I started working with Chris. We started taking the company into a different direction. Not long after we were starting here, we were doing some construction work, but really started to realize the opportunities in commercial construction and put our focuses into that. And it's been a wild ride. We've been very fortunate for who we worked for. One of our biggest clients, we had actually, at the time, what really brought us to where we are today, in my opinion, was a company we were working for that we weren't happy with, and we let them go. And their portfolio ended up being bought out by a company called BlackBerry. And working for BlackBerry, who was just starting out, working on properties that we were working for, who was a different owner, started using us for everything. And that was a wild, wild time. We ended up learning so much and doing so much, and we had to keep up with them. Tech industry was everything. And they don't stop, so we didn't stop. And with the growth of BlackBerry became the growth of Moser Landscape. That was the real crucible that really brought us to where we are today when you look back at our history. And it really put us on a global scale in regards to working for a company of that significance. And we learned a lot doing it. And when they kind of stopped being BlackBerry, it was an interesting time for us. And one of the things with business is you really got to kind of roll with the punches and keep your pulse on what's going on. So when that started happening and they started to decline, we had to become very, very smart in where we were putting our efforts and looking for different revenue streams. And that's where we were already working for a lot of the people, but we took it to another level in regards to road builders, developers, and all that type of stuff. But understanding that the client is everything, they need the work done, and you do whatever it takes was the BlackBerry mantra that we kind of created internally, that we had to kind of adhere to, and what we still run today. You get the work done. Nobody wants to hear why you can't. You do what you can. Not always as a workout, But if you're always focused on getting that done for the client and doing everything possible, you usually have, and you have a good group behind you, which we do. We've got a great staff. We've got a good group of people in the management office that can figure out how are we going to get it done. You come together and you just do. And you get them all in a room, and it's pretty wild what we can make happen.
It's interesting how there's these companies that even if BlackBerry is gone, their legacy kind of continues, right? So my next question, I think you would know the answer to this, is who are the Guelph Holiday Platers and the Kitchener Dutchmen?
All right, so I played hockey as a goaltender, and I had a scholarship opportunity, and I was playing Junior B at the time, so I was playing for the Kitchener Dutchmen, and my first rookie year, I ended up, the Kitchener Dutchmen ended up getting an affiliation with the Kitchener Rangers, and they dropped one of their goaltenders down to the Dutchmen, which then meant I lost my spot. But the Dutchmen didn't want to lose me, so they actually shipped me over on a loan to the Guelph Holiday Platers, Junior B, not Junior A. They had actually that previous year moved to Owen Sound, so it was the Owen Sound Holiday Platers Junior A, and it was the Junior B Holiday Platers in Guelph. And so I played there. They weren't a very good team. I got a ton of shots. I made the All-Star team that year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I went back to the Dutchmen after that year. And I was no longer the starter. I was a backup goaltender, much better hockey club. And we made a run for the championship. And I played for them for quite a few years. And then my last year, I got traded to the Siskins. And my last year playing with the Siskins was the year I was going to take a year off of school. I wasn't going to do my OACs back then. So I ended up taking a year off of school to focus on a scholarship, working for Moser Landscape Group, which back then was Moser Outdoor Maintenance.
Yes.
And if you ever saw our emblem, it was
the guy.
hysterical. Yeah, big muscle guy.
Yeah.
And so then I was making money and learning stuff and having a great time, and I abandoned any idea of hockey scholarship, and didn't have a great year, my last year of hockey anyway. So it worked for me. And yeah, it was fantastic. Good times playing hockey, and I think my hockey experience is a big reason of my success in this business. The relationships made, the dedication to hard work, and understanding what hard work does, I think has been kind of what this business has always been about. And if you do the hard work and you get stuff done, you'll do just fine.
Playing hockey and being a goalie has translated to doing well in this business through hard work.
I think so. I think playing hockey at a competitive level and meeting the people you did. Some people chose the hockey career. Some people went into other careers, and those relationships that you make through hockey and any other sport, I would think, is great for long-term relationships in any business, right? It's who you know and who can help you out and who you can lean on. And being able to work with those people over my time. I still run into people today that I'm like, oh my God, I played hockey with you. And it just gives you that comfort level knowing that you're working with somebody that you kind of know. And generally, I think have the same kind of work ethic.
How long have you been managing Moser?
I would say I kind of moved up through the ranks pretty quickly here. I would say I've been in a management role for 24 years to some level. I was on a push mower when I started and cutting grass and doing snow removal on a sidewalk crew, and then started doing some more construction style work as we started to grow the construction. And within a 3 or 4 year period, kind of maneuvered through all of that stuff. And then I ran maintenance for a little while. I did snow removal for a while, but construction seemed to be where I was making the biggest impact and where the company seemed to be heading the most. And that was kind of my best bang for the buck for the company, for myself, and what we wanted to focus on and do. And so I would say probably 21, 22 years in the construction role, but probably 24 years of management. Yeah.
You're in 19 different like business lines. How do you run them all profitably?
So we talked about this a little bit when we were walking around, and one of our goals is that you hire the right people to do the work and they're going to do it well. Supervision is important, obviously, but not supervision doesn't necessarily mean they have to be the guru to what they're looking at. Managing anything, it's managing, right? And you certainly need a background of what it is they're doing and making sure they're able to do it correctly. But you're managing the people that know how to do it well. So who we have employed here right now are very, very solid. So when it comes to fencing, when it comes to concrete, when it comes to interlock, retaining walls, our supervision has a lot of experience behind it as well. Our management has it. But the guys that are doing it with a lot of experience. So how do you manage that? Well, I mean, we definitely have the right people in the right places to oversee it, and we have a commitment from that staff to make sure it's getting done correctly. Mm-hmm. With all that in place and the proper protocols, we make mistakes, but we generally do it right the first time, and if we don't, we fix it. Mm-hmm. But more often than not, we're doing it right. You give the people the right tools, the right knowledge, the right information, the right supervision, and they seem to be able to plow through it and get it done. Every single week, and we learn from our industry partners, one of the big road builders that we do a lot of work for, we go out for lunches, we talk, we have meetings all the time, and we actually feed off of each other about what they're doing, what we're doing, and we created a process from them, which was every week, no matter what, every Thursday, it is policy that, unless you're off, the management meets for scheduling every Thursday morning. So people try to make meetings with us and the different people that are part of that. We're like, no, Thursday from 9 to 11 is Moser scheduling every time, no matter what. And that puts together our schedules, long-term, short-term, to make sure we're meeting the schedules the best possible. You can't do it all, but most often, most people are pretty satisfied with our responsiveness and our ability to get the work done in a timely manner. Some people's expectations are a little over the top, but for the most part, we're working with everybody to make sure, and we're communicating with them to make sure what they need is getting done. And they don't want to hear why you're not doing it. They just want to know that their work's getting done.
Mm-hmm. When we were doing our walk around, we saw that there's this huge board with 52 keys, and you also have a lot of equipment. How many employees do you have, and what kind of revenues are you running?
So employees range quite a bit. At the height of LRT, we were at 104 people in the Moser.
What's LRT? For the people who don't know.
Oh, so LRT, we were involved with the construction of the LRT. We did a lot with LRT without ever jeopardizing our current customers.
Wow.
We did a lot. I still don't know how we got through all that work. I do. We had a good management team, a good staff, and we were smart, and we managed it, and we scheduled properly, and we worked through our challenges. That's how you get any work done. But we had a very, very hard timeline client with a lot of work. That one there in particular, I'll give you a little history. We're supposed to build, now we didn't carry any products or anything, but we started talking about dollar values. We had a couple $1 million worth of retaining walls to build for the LRT, and there was no product. They provided it all. So when you start looking at dollars and cents, that's a lot of wall. When you start looking at, that's just labor. I got a change order for 2.5 times that after the first 2 weeks of working there, that they missed all these retaining walls. Well, that's a crazy amount. We had 3.5 crews for 3 years nonstop building retaining walls that we did not anticipate, and still did it. We did all their landscaping, we did all their dust suppression, we did all their road sweeping, we did line painting for them. We even did concrete work that other contractors couldn't complete. We did just an obscene amount of work with them. At the height of that, we were at 104. But there's things you got to realize in the landscape industry. Some are laborious and some are not laborious. When you have laborious jobs, your labor goes up as you need it. We used to use a lot of high school students and university students. we actually realized that they were actually our biggest injury base. So we actually kind of reeled back from using student labor. We still use some, but we actually use immigrated labor that is sound and they're responsible and they're safe and they show up and they do their job. At the height, I would say we were at 104. I think right now we'd probably be between the maintenance and construction and office and everything. We're probably in around that 80 to 85 range right now. But we also have another business, another earth moving business, which is about 30 people that I deal with on a day-to-day on a different level. So between all the different companies, we're probably looking at about 120 people. But on the Moser umbrella, you're looking probably about 85 would be a good solid number. Might be 90, might be 80, depending on our workloads and what we're doing and who we've hired.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've been working with, as you said, like 85, approximately, give or take, and about, let's say, 120 people overall. What's the biggest lessons that you've learned just like managing and just working with like this amount of people?
So not being corporate, not being corporate, we're a big believer that you got to be involved with your business and have a good pulse on it. Myself and Chris are generally the first people here, not always the last to leave, but we're always around. So in a situation where an employee feels that they're not getting any attention, we don't have that problem here. There's a lot of people who run their businesses however they run their business, and there's no one perfect way. It's what works for your business. We feel our business is well-rounded in the fact that we know every single employee here by name. There isn't a single person I can walk by that I wouldn't know their name. They have full access to myself, full access to Chris at any given time.
Wow.
No question's a stupid question. We don't get to talk to everybody all the time, but we are always seen, always available, and always around. Supervisors have the biggest direct connection between the foremans and the staff. But every morning, we're involved with getting everybody out. We say hi to everybody. They have an opportunity to talk to us about anything they'd like at the appropriate times. Make sure they're getting to work, obviously. But I think, and Chris is a big believer as well, and I know that for a fact, that having a good relationship with your staff is everything. And that corporate mentality that you're just a number, I hear that in our world where we're not just a number here, even though they are associated as a number. We know everybody by name. There isn't a single person that could walk through this company that I wouldn't know their name or Chris wouldn't know their name for the most part, unless they're brand new and they just started a couple days ago. You haven't had an opportunity to talk to them. But we're available, we're open, and we want to hear how they're doing, what can we do for them, and make sure that they're enjoying their time. Not everything's perfect. Not everyone enjoys their time here. But for the most part, they do. And we have kind of an idea that you should be enjoying your employment at least 85% of the time. If you're not, you may be in the wrong company, wrong industry, we're not doing something, or we're just not communicating properly. So we want to hear from them. We really truly believe that having a happy employee and making sure that we can do what they need and give them an ear to what they have for ideas and opinions is a big factor in their production and how they respond to this company and what we can do to be a good company and make sure everyone's treated well.
Mm-hmm. How did you land upon that structure? Like, how did you know that giving everyone access to your time is the way to go?
Well, then you've done it, right? You come from the ground up. You know that having that ear, doing the work, it's got to be appreciated, right? These guys work hard. When they start talking about heat waves and these guys are still laying sod like the way they are and doing pouring concrete and wheeling it around, and we're telling them, take your breaks, take your time, all that type of stuff. But it's still a grueling industry. It is somewhat, to be said, a young person's industry for sure. And to be doing that day in, day out and not have the appreciation of the people, I almost get offended because, well, what do you know about operating that piece of equipment? Well, they don't know I can operate it, but I did operate it once upon a time. I don't get the opportunity to do it anymore, but I can. So it's good to hear that Jason does know what he's talking about from time to time, and our supervision is very well-rounded, and most of these guys have done the work. They're just not parachuted in because, they had a business degree and no experience, right? These guys have done the work. They appreciate it. They know how grueling it can be. So, when we're going through scheduling and the guys are like, Jay, that might be a little hard to hit. It's hot. We got to look at production's going to start to falter a bit. We can all sit there and appreciate that in our meeting and go, yeah, it is going to be a hot week next week. Maybe we're being a little forward with our schedule. Let's reel it back a bit. Or maybe they need a little added labor and move and shuffle stuff around. So they are getting that right from the top that, yeah, you're going to need some help. And we can dedicate that to you with what we know you're going to be going through, whether it's weather related, job related, style of work, right?
Yeah. You're always on top of that.
We have the understanding from everybody doing that work, what's involved with it and what that's going to actually mean. So yeah, you know what, guys, that's not going to be done in a week. It's going to be 2. Well, we really need it done in a week. It's going to be 2 unless we do something drastic. That's where those conversations come in. What are we doing then? We need it done in a week. The customer needs that done, right? Well, we better start to reallocate or look at other options, outsourcing, subcontracting, or whatnot. But you get a good group of people behind that. You get great ideas and you figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had some nightmare scenarios that made you take action and hire more overhead. What are some stories that you can tell me about these nightmare scenarios?
Well, we've from labor, we've had issues where we were hiring people that were drug addicts, transient labor, stealing, theft, all kinds of different things. That's what really, when we sat down with our foremans, because we have a foreman meeting and it's an open forum where they can complain about what we're doing, and hopefully they are open enough to talk to us about, we don't do everything perfect and we want to try to get better and we're willing to listen. I think that's one of our bigger benefits. So when they came to us about, labor isn't working for us guys and we're having issues and we have our own concerns for our own safety, that hit home. Can't get the work and expect it to be done if they can't get the people to show up and do the right job and do it well and do it safe. So that's where we started going to the immigrated labor. That's kind of a nightmare. That's kind of scary when you're hiring people that are shooting up in one of your porta potties and guys catch them. And, what do you do with that? And they're working amongst you with equipment and there's a lot of activity on there that can be very, very scary if you're not paying attention.
Wait, did that actually happen?
Oh, yeah.
People are taking drugs in one of the portables?
One particular guy was doing meth in a porta potty on one of our job sites. Now, he got let go, but that was what we were kind of into at one point. And, you talk about the Google reviews. Moser hires this, Moser. We'll give everybody a chance. When you need labor and you're looking for labor, you'll interview them, and out of that 10, 15 minute, 20 minute time, you try to assess the situation, and you can't get it right every time. And there was a time where you were hiring people that there wasn't anything out there to hire. It was horrible. All the contractors were fighting over the same people. We talked about that. Paying them $1 more to do something they don't want to do, it's not a good idea. Rather, we kind of rebuilt it from the ground up. We said, this isn't working for us. So then we went to immigrated labor, and it's been working fantastic. We did it through the start, through subcontracting, and now we're doing it through the government, through Moser, which has been awesome. And we're giving people opportunity, and they want to be here, and they want to move up in the business. So there's nothing but good that we see coming from it. And I actually made the comment to Chris 2 or 3 years ago, they'll probably be the next generation ownership. I would think. I mean, they know how to do the work, ground up, passionate about it, smart. Why not? Give people opportunity. Maybe they see that and maybe they'll move up in the company. And as people move up and they make money for you, you want to hone that and give them opportunity. If part of that's an ownership down the road, who knows, right? I mean, if they can make something go of it, at some point, I'm going to be out of here. All right. And we'd like to see the Moser name continue. We do a lot in this community. We believe we have a pretty damn good reputation within the community. People want to work with us. So we'd love to see that keep going long term. And if that's opportunity we provided by bringing people a new opportunity by coming to Canada and work here, why not? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's one of our other employees that just was always here too, right? We don't know, but opportunity. So that's one nightmare scenario where we had, a lot of problems with labor. We had mechanics in the past that weren't the best. We had to get rid of equipment way before our schedule. So you buy something, you think this is where you got to have a pulse on your business. And we were saying that, how do you go from the million to 10 million? Well, if you're basing that equipment you just bought to last you 10 years and it only lasts you 5, you got a big problem. There's 5 years of payments that you haven't covered off in your schedule, your depreciation schedules, and how you're managing that equipment. So we had a mechanic that was created a lot of damages to our stuff, and we did get rid of stuff a little earlier than we were hoping, and that had a cost in our bottom line because all of a sudden we're reinvesting in new equipment before we thought we would have to. And
how does a mechanic create damage to equipment?
That particular mechanic was cutting into wiring harnesses and we do snow removal and salt, right?
So that's a raccoon.
Oh, hey. So all of a sudden, you start poking into plastic covered copper and salt. All of a sudden you start to realize wiring harnesses are going, bad repairs, misdiagnosing stuff, leading us to believe the machine's worse than it is. And then we're sitting there looking at the repair bills going, I don't know, it's probably cheaper to dump it. Then when you start to put, again, that was one particular mechanic over numerous years that we said, start looking at the backlog of what he was doing, hiring new people, outsource some of the stuff, and the stuff we were getting back is, oh my God, we found this on your piece of equipment, or this was bypassed. Safeties were starting to be touched, which can be a big problem. And for safety, if it's a safety and you're bypassing something that's supposed to cause the machine to shut off so that you don't hurt yourself when you're off of it, and they're bypassing things like that, it's a bad idea. And it's illegal. Mm-hmm. So we had things like that were occurring, and those are nightmare scenarios that, again, you're not fixing it. You're trusting someone that they're doing a good job till they're not. And those are nightmare scenarios that, you own it. You're the guy. You hired them.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it falls back on you.
Falls back on management and the owners and making sure that everyone's supposed to be doing their part. When we do our orientations with staff and we get a new hire, I explain it to them exactly the way it's explained in the Green Book and what has been pushed down my throat. I have to hire competent people. That's my job. Competent people have to direct the work, and the workers have to do what they're told. That's how the Green Book is written. They have the right to refuse. So you better hire competent people, train them correctly, and make sure that they're doing good work. And you better hire good people who want to work and do the work safely and know that if they're being asked to do something that's not right, they're going to speak up and say something, right? So, every orientation that is hammered home that if you have questions and you're not comfortable doing something, don't do it. Talk to us. If you're not trained properly, we'll train you more in depth. You should never be grabbing anything. No different than the competent people directing the work, telling some guy who's never been in a machine before to do something. They wouldn't do that. That's why they're the competent worker, to make sure that if they're going to be directing work, they're also understanding that the work that they're directing is capable of the person they're directing it to, right? And that goes to the training that we do and the supervisor training and all that different stuff. So nightmare scenarios are always out there, and they're always just a slip away, right? So you can have a catastrophic problem at any given time if someone's just not looking out for your interests and caring about what it is they do. Mm-hmm. So it is important that most people here are working here, and I truly believe they are working here to do a good job, to be safe, and to follow the rules and respect what they're being told.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the 80-20 rule?
Probably heard it once upon a time, but not right off the top of my head.
Yeah, so the 80-20 rule states that 80% of your revenues come 20% from 20% of sources. 80% of your stresses come from 20% of the sources. And like it kind of plays out even in farming that 20% of your crops produce 80% of the yield. So how do you think this 80-20 rule would apply to your business?
I've heard it in a different scenario. Mm-hmm. And a big company that's been around here forever was dealing with another big commercial company, and their situation was they're 90% of my business, 10% of my business and 90% of their headache. Now, yes. In his business, 10% is a lot, right? We have customers that are 10, 15% of our business. Have you ever heard too many eggs in one basket? You never want too much of your business. You never want something 50, 60% of your business. Because they go, well, half your company's gone, right? So in his world, 10% was a significant amount for one client, and it was 90% of his headaches. And when he got rid of that client, which takes a lot to get rid of a client, that's hard to get clients, let alone tell them you don't want to work for them anymore. We've done it. That's a tough thing to do. It really is. You just have it, and maybe they're not your type of clientele. And we've done that to a few different people where we've said, you just don't seem to have our sort of culture, and it's not a good fit for us. So I think the 80-20 rules is somewhat, I would agree to that in some form. I look at more of the other way. I look at the headaches. Mm-hmm. I don't think 80% of our revenue is coming from 20% of any one thing. Our revenue stream is it varies throughout all the different things we do. Some things are way more productive and profitable than others. But again, we're a company that has maintained our customer base for decades. That's not something you hear a lot. When we do shows, we go to the United States for something, we talk to people in the landscaping field. A 3-year client is unheard of for them. It's all low bid, whatever. But we've built our company, and you're not in business for 41 years by taking advantage of people. You do good work, and you charge what you need to charge to make money, and you make money, and they know you're in business to make money, and you work with the right people with the right culture, and they want to work with you because no one's taking those advantages. And that becomes, you're not getting rich quick. You're doing it over time, and you're doing good work, and we work for a lot of customers that have that same culture fit or ideal, that we're going to work with industry partners that have our back and that are looking out for our interests and not going to take advantage. But we are all in business to make money, and profit is not a dirty word, right? That's what we're here for. But you don't need to do it in one job or one client. You can make money over some time and do good work.
Yeah, so you need to build relationships, do good work, so you can have clients for a longer time. You mentioned earlier that you let go of some of your clients, and you're also as we mentioned before, in so many business lines. What are the clients you let go? And I imagine you also stepped out of some of the business lines. Can you talk to me more about that?
I won't name any names of anybody we've ever not decided to work for, but there were customers that we were working for that, like I said, they're extraordinarily demanding. They didn't care about your business at all, or anybody for that matter that were working in their properties. And that became very evident, became very challenging, as it was unsafe to work for some of these people. And for the demands that they were putting under us, it was one-sided. There was no partnership whatsoever. It's all about them. They don't care about you or your staff or anything like that.
Was there a specific scenario of the demands that were putting on that weren't safe?
Well, they're a well-rounded company within this community. They do a lot of work there. They didn't fit our company's mold. We actually got rid of all of that style worth of work. It was a lot to do with the student residences that were being built, those type of buildings. There's only a handful of people, constructors that we'll work for that do that now, if at all. The timelines are absolutely ludicrous, shoddy stuff that, in my opinion, they were doing just to get the revenues for the students to get in on time. And they were taking significant risk, which is not uncommon for those type of builds. But, when it came to the student residences, we found it very, very scary how they were conducting business. This particular few groups of companies, there are good ones out there, and we will work for them. It's still not really our forte. We just low income style builds where they're spending a lot of money, but they're very tight in how they deal with everything, and they're very, very rushed and can get a very out of control. So again, there's some general contractors that are building that stuff that have a reputation, and they uphold them, and we'll work for them. Some of these other guys, it was pretty scary. We just said, you know what? it works for you. That's your business. Well, you do you. We're not interested in doing it anymore. So we just walked away because it just wasn't our thing. And there's been a few different companies that, again, the way they conduct business may be a little bit not the most professional. So we don't want to be associated with some stuff that may be getting done a little more illegal than we would like to see. Some risky behaviors, some not so ideal work, and so we kind of said, hey, you're not, no hard feelings, but you're not our type of client. And they moved on. They found the next guy or company. There was one in particular where we saw nobody knows a lot about Moser. We're in a unique position because nobody has idea. Some of the companies we're working for in a general contractor scenario are a lot bigger than them, but they're not used to that in the landscape. They hear landscaping and they think mom and pop company, right? Not that we're humongous or anything, but it's funny when you start to deal with people who have an idea that they're going to control you and own you, and they're going to make you just toe the line because where's your next meal coming from? And then certain companies in the landscaping field, when you get into some of those larger projects, that's probably right. That, I need to get that money or my business is on the line. Not that we don't need the money, but we have a lot of other projects that are contributing to the pot. So then, those type of ideals come in and play against us, and they're not really realizing that we have some resources and we're okay.
You don't have to do it.
We don't have to do it.
Yes.
We'll just say, we're out. Right? And we're not going to be held hostage for payment. It's not how we operate. We do a good job and we expect to be paid for it. We're not going to make it up on the next one because you owe us this money and, you're going to play that game where you're just moving us to the next job and controlling us as a trade. And that happens. It's not uncommon. Actually, you start to see it where they start to own you and start to give you as much work as they can to own you, and then they control you because your 80% of your income or revenue is coming from one company. It's not a good thing. And I would say out of that $1 million to $10 million thing, you never ever let anyone control the majority of where your money's coming from. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. You diversify and you make sure you have multiple different sectors. Look at the housing right now. Our earth moving business is primarily housing, and it is not a good spot. Not a lot of work. It's kind of stuck into that. Moser, we are into everything. So the housing market, it's slowed down, but we still are doing all this other stuff for all these different groups, and we're fine. There's lots of work. But if you're pigeonholed into one area, it can be scary.
I know you don't want to name any names. So in general, what are the things that you're concerned about in the student housing market? You said you had some safety concerns.
I just with the general contractors we were dealing with for a few of them, they were just all about getting this building up as fast as possible to meet their timeline, which is understandable. I mean, they have to get these students for when they come to school, but the way they were dealing with their trades, maybe you needed an extra year. Maybe you didn't allot enough time, and it was just not. They're dealing with, it's a different business. I'm not going to speak to that. I don't understand that business. I'm not in that business, but I understand that they're probably dealing with financing and banks, and they're trying to hit targets so that they're not carrying costs and monies as long as they can. Most developers are in the same scenario that way. But what I will say is, if you needed to build the thing in 15 months and you gave yourself 12, shame on you. Now, some of that comes down to permits, right? City permits, and they got to get these students in, and you got to get sales and all that type of stuff. But the few people we were dealing with in that realm, it was the same MO. Not enough time to build the builds, and too many people and tradesmen on top of each other to build the builds. And it was just a free-for-all. It was unsafe. It was disorganized. And the pressure and everything that they put on you, just for us, wasn't our thing. It just, you know what, there's better work out there to be made, and we didn't need it. We were able to just go, all right, it's not really our thing. We'll go this way.
Yeah, fair enough. And you guys were at the point where you had a bunch of other clients, so they didn't own you.
They
so
didn't
you
own
could have
us.
made that. You can make that decision to step away.
We're in a unique point right now, mostly where we not pick and choose, but we have some abilities to not take on work if we feel we don't want to, because we have a good rapport in this area and in this industry, in this region, that there seems to be enough work for us. You know, we have a lot of people ask us, will you come out of town? They come out of town. We're not good out of town. We are good here, and we do a very good job here. When we go out of town, it's usually for a favor, and we tell everybody, we're not good out of town. Our guys don't want to be out of town. They don't want to be spending the night in the hotel. They want to be with their family. We don't have the suppliers and all the different things you need that we have set up here out there. Now you're running off of credit cards. Where do you buy this when this breaks down? How's that getting fixed? We're not that kind of company where we work out of town a lot. And when we do, we're not as good. I'll tell you that we're not as good because we don't do it that often to know where we're buying this piece. And when that happens, we're going to go here and all that type of stuff. But in the region, I don't think anybody can touch us when we come to where we're getting stuff fixed, how we're dealing with it. We're a well-oiled machine in that regard. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we tend to be able to work here and do a good job of it and not have to. We're fortunate that the next job will be available to us in our hometown.
Mm-hmm. What would it take for this well-oiled machine? You said that you're sitting around fluctuating 25 to 35 million in revenues. What strategy and what would it take for you to get to 250 or 350 million dollars in revenues? What would you do?
What we're working on right now, and the biggest hindrance is people. We are prepared for a big growth mode, and everything that we've done has prepared us for the next growth. What's hindering us? It's not labor. It's experienced people that have our culture. That's why I think with what we've done with the immigrated labor, the rewards are about to come, because you now have a whole group of people that have come into our organization that have the work ethic, the know-how, the smarts, the want to work in this industry, the opportunity to make their family allowed maybe to come here, and they can now become second men, foremen, supervisors. It's been 7 years or 8 years-ish, I think, that we've really had this program running for us. COVID kind of affected it because we couldn't get people back. They went home to come back to work for us, and it took a year off or 2 years off of what they were working on. Once those staff become permanent residents and start to take on more opportunity, we're gonna explode. If the work's there, we're gonna have competent people that we've trained, that want to do the work, that have come up with our best of the best foremans, and they're gonna be able to take on those roles. And those foremans that are starting to get a little older and that maybe don't want to keep going, it's a young person's industry, maybe we'll now start to look at supervision or management, and now you're getting that internal level starting to come up in our business. I truly believe COVID put us back 3 years to where we want to be, and we have been at an idle point. Our revenues, they go up just because costs have gone up, and we charge more because costs have gone up. Labor went up, you got to increase your labor. Goods gone up, but our production has kind of been stagnant because we can only manage what we have for our staff, and we don't seem to be growing that because they haven't had the right people coming through the door. I don't know why people don't come to our business from other business companies. I don't know if they're afraid to come into this company. I don't know what it is. We're not going to fight over the nickel like everybody else, pay a nickel to come over. We want people who are wanting to work here and have fun doing it. So our foremans, they love doing what they're doing. They're doing a great job. Some of them, I think, will want to start to see some opportunity come by because they're getting to that age where I don't know if they want to keep slugging it out there. It can be pretty grueling. But those people that have been working with them, and there's a lot of them that are just chomping at the bit to come up. And that's where I see the big growth. And then when we have that move up, it opens up our slots within the immigration that we currently have. And then we can start bringing those people in. And now one of the biggest challenges with what we've been doing is the language barrier. If those people are now our foreman and they can speak English and Spanish, it's untapped resource now. And they can run crews, and hopefully those people will see the opportunity to come here through the proper channels with the proper permits and have their opportunity. And that's going to what I think really propel our company.
To 10x. Yeah.
So people and time.
People and time. I think we've done a lot with the time. We've got a lot of the people coming in. They just need to get their permanent residency. It's hard to bring someone in as a foreman who's not really your employee, right? They're here on a work permit. Are they going to stay? That's challenging, right? But once they become a permanent resident, they can go work for anybody. Hopefully, they'll stay with us and they're loyal to us, and we're not screwing it up by not paying them enough. We got to make it worth their while, and we're all about that. We want to see them grow and do more, and we like to pay people and see them grow their personal situation, right? So ideally, they're coming up. They're going to be loyal to us. They're going to want to stay here. We're treating them well and paying them appropriately and providing more opportunity. And then that's what's hindering us.
You said that you don't know why people don't come to your company. If you had to make a pitch to experienced people on why to join your company, what would you say?
Stop looking through your empty promises. I hear that a lot. I'm going to eventually get this, or I'm eventually going to get that. Not everybody wants that, but if you're someone who wants to have opportunity, I think that's something we've always done very well here. What's hindered our growth is the fact that we don't have the right people in to grow the business and give them those opportunities. We're creating that internally, and that's through time, right? You're not running a crew because you worked for a year or two. I hope. Maybe you do gain that much kind of experience, but our foremans have been doing this for a long time, and I think it's important that the people that are running your crews are extremely well-rounded so you can be safe and productive and have a good understanding of what you're doing. And your supervision fills the void of anything beyond that, making sure you have the right information, right product, the management of all that, labor, everything that goes with it. But the people that are building it and running it, that want that responsibility, need to own it and take on that responsibility to the next level. And if you're working as a laborer or foreman for somebody and they're not giving you those opportunities and they're just telling you that they'll come eventually and they're not, that's something that we aim to try to fulfill. It's not for everyone though. We've over promoted before and it's cost us good people, right? Well, everyone wants to be a supervisor, or everybody wants to manage something, or everybody wants to be a foreman. No, they don't. Sometimes people just want to come to work and do their job, labor and go home, and that's fine. And they do it exceptionally well, so you always feel that you want to provide them this other opportunity. But that's actually worked against us. We've lost good people from pushing promotion. But if you're one of those people that want to be promoted and you're willing to go through that, by all means, we would love to see that too. And that's good for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about business lines? Let's say you wanted to go to 250 or 350 million. What specific part of your business do you think will take you there?
I think our supervisory level, moving up and taking on more managerial responsibilities. Our office is pretty lean. One of the biggest challenges for us, I would say, in the growth side of things, and we're looking at internal options for different professionals to oversee, like a CFO, some type of controller to manage all the businesses, different things like that. So you need the right personnel, but you need to get to that volume to be able to support different positions like that. But having the people moving up in your business that have seen it and lived it and grown it, I think will be the ultimate challenge for us to grow this business. We've brought people in and they haven't fit the bill. They don't understand our culture. They don't seem to last very long in those scenarios. Some people do. Some people come in and do very well, but it's all about culture, right? And I would think to get to those numbers, you got to create one hell of a management team. But where we've done that, 19 different pieces that we do very well and they're siloed and the people running them know what they're doing, I think our office would have to evolve to that. Right now the office is doing everything. There isn't one, everyone's contributing to the office and helping out wherever, but I think you'd have to start to see different professional pieces within our office start to fall in and have a little bit more on that.
Mm-hmm. I meant to say, like, is it your construction business that will take you there? Is it the landscaping business? Is it the commercial or the government business that will, propel you to the next level?
I think construction. Lawn maintenance doesn't really, it's construction. Construction is going to be ultimately what makes the money. Things that, we are talking about that would bring you to the next level. And, you got to look at it, every time you do something, that action create a negative reaction. I'll give you an example. We don't do sewer pipe. We work for a lot of people who install sewers. If all of a sudden we start doing sewers, are we going to do their work anymore? That's a challenge for us. It's like an asphalting company. They have to be able to put asphalt down for people that need asphalt. But if all of a sudden they start developing, are the people that are developing going to hire that company to put down their asphalt? Probably going to hire somebody else. It's not supporting a competition mentality, right? Some of our competition, we would become competition for many of our clients if we go down other avenues that would really increase our business. And that's a decision you got to make with your management team to determine what that looks like. Do we just add 10 more wall crews? Well, then we're going out of town. Do we add what we're currently doing to multiple crews? Okay, we can do that. That's going to get you to your numbers, but you're going out of town. Are we okay with that? Do we have the right setup to do that? Are we prepared to do that? Next would be just increasing different revenue streams. Do you get into pipe? We don't do irrigation. Every day, our one estimator, we should be doing irrigation. We should be doing irrigation. So those are the conversations we're already having. There is more than enough work out there that we could start to have 2 or 3 or 4 crews of those 19 that do it. Could we have 4 fencing crews? Probably. Could we have 10 wall crews? Probably. Maybe we have to go beyond our comfort level with our travel, but those are the things that will likely get us to those numbers. The work is there. If you're doing it well and you've got the right people in place, can you get that number down a little bit to be a little more competitive? We're not the lowest bid. We're not the highest bid. To get a lot of this work, you got to be the lowest bid. Can you streamline your work to get there? Those are the questions that you got to kind of sort out, figure out, and that will be what propels you.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to jump off of that, the whole lowest bid situation. I looked at some of the government contracts that you guys have been bidding for. And, I'm really new to this, bidding and tendering environment. Can you tell me more about working for the government? When did you start? And what's the process of acquiring government tenders? And how do you build a reliable business on that? Because there's always the danger of someone else coming in and undercutting you.
Yeah, so with what we do, there's kind of a few different challenges with what we're going to talk about. On the landscaping, what I call softscape side, it's challenging for people to come in. They do, but it's a challenge for them to be competitive. Softscaping would be any living piece, so sod plants. The problem with that is it has to be maintained.
It's like the trees you showed us out back.
Right. So if you're going to come in from Toronto and you're going to plant 15 trees, most contracts say you have to warranty them for 2 years or a year, and that requires watering. Are you going to bring a truck in from Toronto regularly to water those trees? On the public side of things, the government contracts you're talking about on the softscaping. We do a lot with the region of Waterloo. We're currently doing a lot with the city of Kitchener as the general contractor. We work a lot as a subcontractor, just so everyone's aware. We do run our own projects. We build city parks. We do all types of stuff directly with the municipality or region as the general contractor. But I would say we probably do more as a sub in our current makeup. So Moser Landscape Group would probably be, it changes every year. I'd probably say 30% of what we do is GC, and 70% of what we do is through some sort of subcontractor. So if we're building a building with GC, like I'll just name some names, Little Blamey, Ball Construction, any of those type of companies, we're just a subcontractor installing those landscapes. But when we're working with the city of Kitchener, for example, right now, directly for their forestry division or their parks division, they've shortlisted who's allowed to bid because they're tired of low bid. And that recently happened in Kitchener. It was so bad. I actually went to a park that we're building right now, and the park we added to, I thought had been there for years. It turns out it was built last year. And that was one of the reasons why they've changed their tune on low bid. And now they have a short list, which means preferred bidders only, and they go out to tender to 4 people that are preferred. Makes our opportunity to get the job a whole lot better, and it makes them a little more comfortable that they're not going to get a shoddy trade in there, because they're actually depicting who's allowed to even bid their work. It's not something you've seen a lot, but it's starting to become a little more prominent because of the challenges of these bad contractors coming in and doing horrible work. So we do a lot of that GCing for the softscape and a little bit of the hardscape. Like building a park, there's hardscape elements in there. We have subcontractors working for us. But when you work for government, you're paid. Unless you do a bad job. It's guaranteed money, right? You're not working for somebody who's going broke, right? It's the city, it's government funds. They have it, they're spending it, and you're going to get paid.
Yeah.
Just don't screw it up. They can hold back money, they can do all that type of stuff. But we're generally not running into those problems because we tend to do a good job. We just redid the revitalization of the band shelter at Victoria Park. It's been extremely well received by the mayor, by all the constituents, by the councillors, by the actual people from the city we were directly working for. They were just over the moon with what we did. We're building a whack load of parks for them right now. They are just ecstatic with the work that they're getting compared to what they were getting on the low bid idea. Now, we were low bid against a short list, but we're running into this right now where you're seeing it in municipalities with the road builders where there's 50 different companies bidding on stuff from God knows where, and the regions and the townships and all that are their backs are up because you just don't know what you're going to get installing for you. And low bid, they're getting it. Mm-hmm. Now they're bonded, so we deal with bid bonds and all that type of stuff, and most of those projects are bonded. So if you don't perform, they have insurance against you, and they can kick you out and use your insurance against you to make sure that they're bringing somebody in, and it's completely covered. We were working for somebody on a regional Waterloo project that ran into financial difficulties, and they called on their bond, and we got paid through their bond because we weren't getting paid, which is kind of nice for us on the municipal level because, like I said, you're going to get paid. Company goes bankrupt, the jobs are generally bonded. So unless you aren't the culprit for not getting done well, you're generally safe.
Mm-hmm. What does it mean for a job to be bonded?
It's government. It's an insurance company ensuring your work is going to get done. So if you go broke, you have insurance that you're paying that will cover off your client. So your client's going to say, I'm pulling your bond. If you're not performing, they pay the owner. So Moser's bonded on a job and we aren't performing and they're like, we're done with you. They can pull our bond and the bond will pay out. Now we'll probably have trouble getting bonding in the future. You don't want that to happen. Or if we go broke, they can call our bond. It's insured. That job is now been paid as an insurance so that they can make sure that that's covered and they can use that money from the insurance company to finish out the project. So all the subcontractors that would be working on the job are going to generally get paid.
On top of that, you were talking about how there's preferred bidders. Why do government projects like constantly miss timelines and budget? For example, the Toronto subway was supposed to cost $10.9 billion and be completed in 2027. Now the estimate is $15 billion and it's supposed to be completed in 2031.
My personal belief on all that is the exact same thing we're talking about. It's low bid. So everything runs through this program, right? So all of a sudden you hire a consultant, and it's the cheapest consultant to do the job gets hired. So then they hopefully didn't screw up their bid, and then they're going to try to save money by designing these projects as cost effectively as they can with as little labor and all that type of stuff as they can. And what we're finding is you get bad drawings, bad tenders, bad situations where they miss a lot. So all of a sudden you've hired a low bid consultant who's going to try to save as much money as they can on that project because they got the job to get it done within the amount they bid it for. So they're going to rush some drawings potentially, not always, but this generally comes down to the whole sequence of that low bid mentality. And I'm not convinced the low bid mentality works very well. And I think that's why you're starting to see, well, it's not starting, this has been forever, but you just got to look at the consequences of that. So you have bad drawings. We run into that even from landscape drawings to architectural to civil to all those different drawings you get, that you're building something and it doesn't work. You have a bad tender, right? Now, a low bid company gets it. Did they screw up the bid on top of a bad drawing? It starts to snowball. So are they trying to save money on how they're trying to do things? And you also have situations where big contractors have lawyers on staff that go through contract documents, and they'll bid a job based on the fact that they know the contract's poor and they can go after extras. And then they're just going to hammer that job to death on extras because they know there's a lot of mistakes in it because the low bid consultant made a lot of mistakes. So when you start looking at something as simple as what you're talking about in Toronto, I think that's like the big likelihood that what you're seeing is that consequence of all this low bid rush stuff. And then, all of a sudden, I've seen it on different projects where, well, that we missed that and you need to do it. And that's $10 million, right? Okay, well, what are you going to do? The contingency on the job is $100 million. Okay, we're good. I'm making that as an example. But that $100 million is now 90. And then you encounter the next problem. All right, well, we estimated this work was going to take 18 months. But you just added $100 million worth of work on me. It's not 18 months anymore. It's 24 months. Like, it all has these repercussions when things go wrong and legitimate extra work. Whose fault is it? Is it the municipality for putting that to a low bid and got poor plans? You start to see poor plans. You got a junior on it, made some mistakes. Maybe didn't get caught by the senior planner, right? Got out to tender, lots of problems with it. Happens right from tendering too. So then you start going through all that stuff, and it can really contribute to the overall problem of sometimes it's a contractor. Sometimes he's missing stuff and trying to take advantage of a bad bid, going after extras. If you've ever heard someone, oh, they're just going to extra me to death, right? Those type of habits happen with some bad contractors. Contractors can be bad, right? Bad behaviors, get rich quick kind of people. And then you have the legitimacy of, yep, we missed that. That's an extra, that's an extra, that's an extra. Legitimately, we missed that. And it has to be done. It's not going to work if we don't build that in. And to think that these projects are not getting missed, there's lots of problems with those different things. Mm-hmm. Some people try to hide them. Some people try to go what they call the SP, special provisions. Well, you should have had to pay that because this note in this part of the contract says this, and we believe that that's your responsibility. That puts contractors out of business, right? So then you get legal battles and all those type of things. So low bid can be a problem, in my opinion, and contribute to those type of scenarios where things are over budget over time, but no one's really disclosing why.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty vague and like cloudy on the public end. It's hard to find information. It's just like, okay, all of a sudden it's like from 10 billion to 20 billion, and not only that, you're also extending the timeline. So it's like a double whammy almost. You were talking about how you're not a big fan of the lowest bid kind of situation with tendering. What would you do? What would be your suggestion to change the system, and also at the same time make sure that there's new companies having opportunities? Because currently you were talking about the Kitchener, what's it called? The municipality of Kitchener having preferred bidders. But doesn't that kind of reduce the opportunity of new companies to come in?
That's what I said, because we were a new company once and we want to bid stuff, and we're still not that big of a company, and there's stuff that we want to bid that we haven't been able to bid before and we'd like to. So I agree with all of that. I don't know what the answer is. The stuff we've talked about, one of the things is, okay, maybe you're only allowed so many of a certain value within a municipality. So if your business does X number of dollars and you're trying to bid, say you do $20 million and trying to bid a $10 million job, is that municipality going to let you do half of your revenue on their project? There's different ideas that I think should be implemented. Scorecards are a big one. So I know the region of Waterloo, I believe, has a scorecard on not just their contractors, but on their consultants. And basically you do the job and they critique it and you get a rating. And those ratings will depict, I don't know how it all works, but these things are still being tried and people are doing them. And I think that's important. And you're right. If you're a new company, how do you get an opportunity? It's got to be fair. So if you're having preferred contractors, I don't know how you introduce new blood. For us, it's kind of nice to be able to know you're bidding apples to apples. There are contractors, when they're bidding on something, we won't bid it. It's a waste of our time. We know we will not compete. We know the client's not going to be happy. So maybe that's where the scorecard's got to kick in. Until you have a history, you're allowed to bid it, but when you start getting these scorecards, you got to maintain a rating. That would be kind of one of the things, I would say, and that would get those people out. There's on the softscaping end of things, I always talk about contract. I belong to a consortium called Vineland. It's a government-funded thing that we were asked to be part of for tree planting. And one of the things I was talking to in a forum when I was doing one of these for the group was that the bidding process in this industry has to change in regards to how the maintenance is itemized within the contract. So they used to put out a contract, go plant 500 trees. How much is that going to cost you? Well, if you're a bad contractor and you have no chance or want to maintain these things, and you're going to put them in the ground and you're going to take off what we call taillight warranty, you don't care if they survive, you're not going to do anything to maintain them. The challenge is when I have to, and they write it in the spec that I have to maintain this, I'm going to do that. I'm out. I'm not going to win this bid now because this contractor's not planning on doing that. I buy the tree for the same amount he does. I buy the equipment probably for the same amount he does. The only thing I have on him is the competent staff and the efficiencies that we have to try to outperform him. That's really what bidding is. And what my profit margins are going to be and all that factored in. So if they loop all that in and the maintenance and everything is under one item and they have no interest in doing the maintenance, I'm out every time because that bad behavior and that bad company wasn't intending on doing it anyway. So they're going to win the bid. So one of the things I was talking to consultants about is you got to start to take maintenance out of the equation because it is its own thing and separate it and show what we're putting in for maintenance. Because again, I'm buying the same tree for him. I'm putting it in the same mechanism as him, generally, or them. The only thing I have on him is now who's maintaining this and how good of a job are they going to do. So what's the base to put the plant in and what am I putting beside it to maintain it? And in the consortium, with all of the municipalities across Canada, by the way, they couldn't believe, they were like, that's fantastic. that really makes a lot of sense, because I said if they're not anticipating maintaining it, you're going to see that in their bid. Putting the tree in, dollar for dollar, now I'm going to maintain it. They've got $4, I've got $500. Who's planning on maintaining this? You know $4 isn't going to maintain it. You know that, right? So now it comes down to who's going to maintain it properly, and then they can make a proper discretionary decision based on what people are saying. The benefit to that is now all the money isn't paid out to them because it's a maintenance item that gets paid as it's completed. So if they've paid them for the tree planting and they haven't paid the maintenance and they don't do the maintenance, they still have some money. And now they can take that money and hire X company, they can convince them to now, to come in and maintain that. But at least there's money there. But it doesn't work if they let that guy bid again, or that company. So what I was explaining to them is then they got to be blacklisted. And if you're not blacklisting the companies that are doing a poor job, you're never going to get through this problem. Not to say people don't make mistakes, but if you're doing this and you're starting to see a history with a company, you can start to say, we're not working with you anymore. But if you start to bury it in an item with SPs and all that type of stuff, and you're just making them, the good contractors are going to do what you're asking, and they're going to price it in, and they're going to price themselves out of the job. And that's what I've been telling them for quite some time. Every time you add in all these extra things you think you're going to make a difference, you're actually putting, if you don't structure it properly in your contract, you're putting the good contractors at a disadvantage, and we're not going to be able to compete now because we're burying it in the item. Show what you want and pay for it. And then you can make a proper decision based on what you're asking us to do and what you're asking us to maintain. You can't bundle it all together, and then when the guy doesn't do it or the company doesn't do it, say, oh my God, what are we going to do? Right? Moser didn't get it now because we were doing that work in that item. But you couldn't see that because it wasn't separated. So structuring of your contracts is going to be a big deal. And the civil guys do a pretty good job at that already. So when you're talking like transit subway stations and stuff like that, your civil contracts are done well for the most part. You still have your low bid and you still have good and bad consultants, just like you have good and bad contractors. But you got to really start to look at how you're structuring contracts and building them appropriately and making sure that the information there is sound and that everyone's bidding on the right things, apples to apples. And you're holding them to account. Like I said, there's a lot of companies, when we hear they're on the bid list, we know we're not going to compete. We know they're not going to do a good job. But if they're going to let them bid, why are we wasting our time? And we actually just say, who's on the bid list? No, we're not interested.
Yeah,
it's a waste of our time and resources.
Because you know from past experience that these guys are not serious.
They will be low.
Yeah.
You're not going to be happy with their work, and we're not going to compete. So why would we waste our time?
Yeah, for sure. Because you have to like put together a bid, and then you have to pay for the bid as well, unless you're on a plan or something. And this is all we're talking about, all above board stuff, right? Like even all the legal battles and the SPs, it's all above board. But what is the extent of like corruption that you've seen within the government or favoritism? Is there anything you've seen in that regard?
I would say not so much for me. I haven't seen any of that on the municipal bidding stuff. Again, I'm working as a subcontractor a lot of the time. The stuff that I'm generally doing, I've never really seen anything. I've seen it on the private side, usually within somebody's company where site supers are asking for certain things that we feel are a little bit shady, stealing from the company. I'll get you on the next job if you do this for me or do that for me. There was a big company that we worked for that it was happening in one of their divisions that we actually said we will no longer work for this division. We thought it was known within their organization, but it wasn't. When all hell rained down and it became evident, they came to us and we said, can't believe we didn't know that. Like 7 years ago, we said we're not doing work for this group anymore, and they're actually upset with us that we didn't come to about it. But how do you go to a client? I don't know. It put us in a really bad spot. But again, we're above board. We don't want to be doing shady stuff like that. We saw it wasn't our thing, and we said, hey, we're just not going to work for that group. But when that all came out, I mean, there was a lot of people who lost their jobs. There was threats of legal action on a lot of different stuff. And so I've seen it on the private sector from time to time. It's usually people that are working within an organization that are trying to take liberties. I mean, I'm sure every industry has a little bit of theft and corruption. But I don't think I really have seen it. I've heard of certain things in development where, greasing somebody's palms or something, but not in what I'm experiencing with any type of bids that we're doing for any municipality, city, especially on that. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever seen anything remotely close to that. But I have seen it on private stuff where people are asking us for stuff. We're like, no, we're not doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was mainly interested because a lot of rumors came out. I don't know if they're credible or not, about the provincial government with development and zoning. That these huge builders knew Doug Ford somehow, and he pressured local governments into changing zoning laws in their favor, things like that. That's why I was interested.
We deal with a lot of developers that were even named in some of that stuff. I'm not privy to those kinds of conversations, so I can't speak to that type of stuff. But that's a whole other level of work that I wouldn't be familiar enough with to even make a comment, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Now we're kind of going into a separate direction here. It'd be kind of ironic if a landscape company cannot maintain their event space.
Right? That would be embarrassing. Yeah. And again, in regards to our lawn maintenance, we're a very commercial company. We used to do high-end stuff, but landscaping industry is kind of not what it used to be. I would say, I keep telling this, I think this is a big problem in why landscapes are failing and the challenges we're facing in today's world is that as much as only 15 years ago, I would say 80% of the people took care of their property and cared about their property. They would fertilize. We had chemicals back then and stuff, and you could perfect pristine lawns, and you cared, and the property looked great. That's almost done a full flip. I would say 20% of the people care about their outside of their property, and 80% don't care at all. And it's actually been a real problem for us as a company because we have to install this work on these people's properties that we have no control over. And they fail because they're not maintaining it properly. They cut it too short, they cut it during drought, they don't fertilize, they don't water. They take more than 1/3 of the grass blade off, they drive on it, they have never even heard of aeration. They just don't maintain to the level that we used to see 15 years ago. And it's having significant effects on success of what we do for these condominiums and stacked towns and communities where people just go in and leave it alone and everything's dead. It looks terrible, right? Except for the 20% who care. And
you don't sell maintenance as like an add-on or like a package?
We couldn't do that much work. I mean, we go into behind Charcoal Steakhouse is a part of Kitchener called Centerville. Mm-hmm. And we were working for a road builder named JAR, J-A-R-R, or J-A-A-R, JAR Construction. Big group out of London. Huge company. And they did 7 different streets in there. We had to go in and soil and sod them and water them and maintain it. But the people in that community don't maintain the property beyond what we did. We do 60 days of maintenance for the city. That's our contract. And then the city goes through and looks at all these properties and said, yep, no, you've done your obligation. Looks good. We're watering, we're fertilizing, we're aerating, and then we leave. And then nobody does anything anymore. And then they go through a drought, or these people are just cutting it, not maintaining their property properly, and it declines and everything's dead. Now, Moser did it. 3 years later, everything's dead. Everyone say, oh, what did you do? It was fine. The 60-day period, we were actually professionally maintaining the property. But once we left, the 20% that maintained it looked fine. The 80% of people who stopped didn't water during a drought. And it's just not looking good, right? And
because then it looks bad on you, right? It's like, oh, is this the kind of work you do?
Yeah.
Right? Over time.
Like we did Homer Watson from the expressway to the 401.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a lot. Millions of dollars worth of work. And even the region, I said to them, we were maintaining it. We got to our period of, they're only paying us to a certain point. Hey, we're in a drought. I think we need to continue watering. Now they pay for water by the cubic meter. Well, that's a lot of water. Like we were dumping hundreds of thousands of gallons of water on Homer Watson. And they said, no, it's not in our budget. And almost half the property died, right? So what do?
Yeah.
We're not the United Way. I can't afford to keep maintaining it.
Yeah. It's not a non-profit charitable organization.
Yeah.
Right? People are not paying taxes to you.
To pay us to water and irrigate. And it's a tricky industry. It's a tough one.
That kind of sucks.
It does.
What about for the commercial side? You said you don't have like the capacity to even, I guess, offer maintenance as part of the package.
Well, so maintenance is a tricky thing. Could we mow it? Yeah, we could probably keep hiring people, buy equipment, and mow it. I'm talking maintenance in regards to water. Mm-hmm. There's just not enough water. The challenge we have is I think I mentioned you have 5 water trucks out right now. You only make money with them 3 to 4 months of the season if it's dry, right? It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to have these vehicles, and then you have to staff them for a few months of the year. Not that they don't go out in the spring for a little bit here and there, but not all 5 of them. So all of a sudden you sit there and say, okay, well, could you water these properties beyond? Well, yeah, but you know how much we'd have to charge to have these vehicles just sit here? What if it's not a dry year? Who's paying for that? It's a very tricky piece of what we do. Because the 5 that we have, we're sitting there going, oh my God, do our estimators know the true cost of licensing, maintaining, servicing these vehicles? They're very expensive to operate. They're seasonal trucks. So you only make money with them when you need them. It's a hard thing. So to say, go buy more water trucks. Well, are we going to get a commitment from someone? Are you going to pay us the $1 million a year to have that truck on call? I don't think so, right? So, and then there's only so much water.
Yeah.
Then you start going against
Wait,
bylaws.
what do you mean by that? There's only so much water.
Well, so you can only take so much water out of a creek or a stream per day. You're supposed to actually have that with a permit, and then you have your fill stations. Water is expensive. So we have a pond out of our one location that we try to use, but it's on the other side of the city and it's a little slower to fill. So if we're in the area, we fill from there, we save a couple bucks. The water quality is actually better. Or we go to the municipally treated depots, which could be in a lineup, because there's only 2 in Kitchener. You got one on Shirley, one on Battler, and they only fill your truck. It takes about, I think it's 8 minutes to fill our small one and 16 minutes to fill our big one.
Wow,
Right.
They can't have friggin' bigger hoses or anything?
That's 4,000 gallons, right, on the big truck.
Like if there's a lineup, it makes sense to just up your output.
Yeah, but you can't, right? Like that's fire hydrant, right? So it's pretty much as fast as you can get it to come out. That's actually pretty fast, but if you have 6 trucks in line at 16 minutes a pop, how are you getting around the city? Then you have Guelph. You got to go to Guelph. There's one in Cambridge, but it's extremely slow. It's not even close to what those fill ratios are. Shirley was down the other day. Guelph was down the other day. We were in Brantford. That one was up and running. So water's a tricky thing, and you don't like. We've had a wet year, really. We had a lot of rain in June, July there. But we still needed the water trucks, and this week we've been going crazy. And you only need the water when it's hot and droughty. So everybody's at the water depot this week. So how are you getting the water? And how far back are you going to go? And how much are you willing to offer up? And you can't just go to creek and stream without permit. And you're only allowed so much a day because you're taking it from live fish habitat, right? So there's a lot of regulations and rules in watering. Like every business, and that's the one thing I think is really, really interesting. I talk about our challenges, but every single business, whether you make this pen, you build this table, or you do what you do as a business, has its challenges, and they're all unique. Even within the same industry, my challenges here are probably different than what you talk to Ryan about. Ryan's mostly homeowners. He does a lot of residential work. The Salt Connections become almost like a wholesale club, right? They're a supplier now. That they used to do construction and stuff. They still dabble in it. Rob Tester and Linda, you probably talked to Linda. Their business is so far from ours, it's not even funny. And even when they were in the landscaping, it wasn't even on the same realm, right? They were doing little works and homeowner stuff, but I guarantee you they had a lot of challenges, but they were different than what we were talking about, because they ran their businesses different, right? And I mean, you go to Samsung or Apple, I mean, same company, but if you talk to their heads, they're going to say, our issue's this and our issue's that. You think you're talking to two totally different industries.
Yeah, same industry.
Same industry, different
two companies.
challenges.
Yeah, completely different challenges.
They'll have similarities and challenges that they face with policies.
Like industry and government, yeah.
Government's a big one. I think to most people, government's probably your biggest hindrance. We have too much government. We do have way too much government. And it's only getting worse. And until you take those layers away, it's funny. The private industry supports all of the public. Once the public outweighs the private, there's a big problem, right?
Sorry, I
so
don't
the private supports the public.
Yes, like
coffer,
through contracts and tenders,
right?
yes.
So we produce all of the work and money, and the government takes it and supports it. When that becomes bigger than what's supporting it, you've got a big problem.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
We fund your teachers, colleges. Some colleges are private, hospitals, general government, all that provincial, federal, all that type of stuff. Yeah, you pay your taxes as a government employee, and that comes back to the coffers and all that. But it's the private businesses that suffer the most, right? It's funny. I would love to have our staff in these grand pensions and all these type of things, but then you look at what the government's just throwing at the people who work for them. None of our people we can't do that for them. Would love to, we can't. There's not enough money.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how the productivity is on the private end, but the people who are really enjoying their life with like the least amount of work are in the public sector, like
and
in the government.
And they control our policies in which make our job work, i.e. 17 months to get a maintenance facility here. That is hindering our business to be successful and employ people. It doesn't make any sense. That should have been...
Is that like a recent development, or have you seen it progress throughout your life, like government getting bigger and bigger?
I would recommend, if you're going to go down those lines of questions, you go to your developers, your local developers, and start talking to like your Activa groups, your Reeds, the people that are building, that are trying to help this housing crisis, and then you start to see the hurdles that they're running into within approvals and permits to get development started, let alone finished, right? They have letters of credits, they got to pay up, and they can't get them cleared out, so they're into the bank, and it's not them that's paying for it. It's the next home buyer, right? Like, I'm not making any money, and you're making me incur all these costs as a developer. That lot that I was going to sell for $200,000 is now $250,000 to the builder who's going to build the house on it. Now your house is $1.2 million, not $1 million.
Yeah.
Right. And I think government is a. You start talking about the Doug Ford and all that type of stuff. Well, at what point do you even start to look at that and say, is that just frustrations from the developers who can't get their land to even get it to be developed because of the hurdles that they're facing? Like the not in my backyard mentality is everywhere, right? I'm going to build this. It makes sense. The infrastructure's there. But now the community who bought the exact same thing 5 years ago is saying, not in my backyard. I don't want this development there. But the infrastructure's there. It makes sense. It's all ready to go. I mean, it's it's probably the best thing. You don't need schools, you don't need shopping centers, you don't need hospitals. It's all right there. And then not my backyard, and the municipality saying, no, you're not building there. I want you to go up. And then your little Baden township is going, I'll take you, right? There's no schools, there's no hospitals, there's no infrastructure, there's no grocery stores, and all of a sudden they put in a 1,500 home subdivision because the place that it should have went, that's got all the infrastructure ready, that not my backyard.
Yeah, and then all these people have to drive to the region, right? All these emissions, like all this time wasted,
Yep.
and it just doesn't make
That's
sense.
the true urban sprawl.
Yeah.
And then you start to talk to city growth is like, I agree. You gotta be smart with it, and you gotta control it. But it wasn't that long ago, and I think it's kind of contributed to this housing crisis that we have. So is immigration. But when you say to a city that, no, we're not letting you build anymore, I want you to go up. Well, most people that are living in Kitchener-Waterloo don't want to live in a 25-story condo. They want a private home, single dwelling, or something smaller like a stacked town community. Not everybody wants the town high-rise up downtown. Not to say that they don't want that, but that's not, they almost went to, that's all you're allowed to build, and we're not letting you build over here. But they need to do a mix. And talking to developers, I mean, they went for a big gun hole on building all these high-rises. But the people wanting to move here wanted single dwelling or smaller style communities on the outskirts.
Mm-hmm.
So we deal with a lot of developers. I have a lot of conversations, myself and Chris, we go out with those guys that own those businesses quite a bit. You want to talk about information and challenges, oh my God. I'm not at liberty to discuss what they talk about,
Yeah.
but I know enough that your eyes would open up pretty drastically to see the challenges that they're faced with on government and policy.
Let's say tomorrow, for some reason, you were to lose it all, and all you had is $10,000 to your name. What would you do?
Probably start right back up and try again.
How would you go about doing it? What's like the first thing you would do? You have $10,000.
Oh, well, I mean, there's a lot of things I do different. I know I've learned a lot, but $10,000, I don't think you could make a go in this business. If we were talking a couple $100,000, even that would be tough. But I don't know.
How would you start off? You can't do everything anymore.
Oh no, you wouldn't even be able to buy a lawnmower for $10,000. I don't know. I don't like failure, so I feel like I'd have to kind of fix that problem of failure and get back at it and prove it wrong.
Just run it back.
I don't know how that would happen. I guess I mean, I'm connected enough. I know I'd get work right away. I guess I'd get my boots on and start putting some work together and keep my family good. But yeah, I don't know. What bridges were broken from us going under, right? Who's going to want to work with us if we've done that? Because typically when you go broke, you owe people money, and I would want to make that right. So I don't think there's anybody who goes in business to stiff people over and cause people losses, right? So I think I'd want to make any debts right by figuring out how to get back into business and rebuild some relationships and make sure that I'm keeping my name positive in the community for sure.
Yeah, fair enough. I was interested in this because like I wanted to know what the best piece of advice like you've ever received is.
The best piece of advice would be work hard and you'll do fine. And that was another business owner who's owned quite a few businesses, been pretty successful. And I remember him and I were having a coffee. We were talking about business. And he made a comment that it doesn't matter what business you're in, if you work hard enough at that business, you will make money. And I took that to heart. I thought that was a pretty bold thing to say. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're passionate about it and you work hard enough, you'll make money doing it. I think that's really, really realistic. but you got to work hard, and it just doesn't come to you. It is hard work, and it's sleepless nights, and it's everything you got to make it go, and you got to keep your head on straight, and you got to make sure that you're thinking about every step of the way, and with every 2 steps forward, I think you take about 10 back. But if you work hard enough, you'll do fine. You really will. I don't know anybody who doesn't have a hard work ethic that puts it together and gives it a go that hasn't succeeded. Well, not without challenges, of course, but I think with hard work you'll do just fine.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Did you have a question for him?
No, I'm kind of just taking it all in.
Yeah. This was incredible. Yeah, this is amazing. Like, just being here, I think it's great.
Well, that's the end of this one. I really appreciate Jason and Moser for the opportunity to have this conversation. He was very generous with his time and filled with knowledge. Not only is he an amazing person to speak to, the thing that I found honorable was his commitment to his employees and coworkers. I'm thankful that he took time out of his busy life without the expectation of any return. Please reach out to them for any of your commercial landscaping needs. See you next week for the next episode of Yaps of Meaning.